Welcome to Faces of a Nation, the American political textile collection of Mark and Rosalind Schenkman, on view now at the Peoria Riverfront Museum in Peoria, Illinois, right on the Illinois River, and it's here until April of 2025. I'm Jeff Bridgman, dealer in antique American flags, American textiles, and early American folk art. And I'm the curator of this exhibition, which includes an enormous array, in fact, the largest ever, of flags, kerchiefs, and banners ever presented at a museum. I met the Schenkmans in Greater New York nigh on 20 years ago. I sold them their first flag, and the collection has grown. It snowballed, in fact, along with our growing friendship, into what is probably the largest and most important of its kind in existence. Presented here is an enormous array, larger than we have ever exhibited before, because this is a tremendous gallery. Huge, high walls, beautiful, and just like the rest of the museum, just meticulous and fantastic. While in other museums we have presented Mark and Rosalind's collection, usually in, somewhere between 35 and 60 flags, the scale of this museum and the flexibility of its tremendous staff allowed us to do something we'd never done before. So 50 flags in the initial idea grew into, well, Mark wanted 75 flags, and I said, how about maybe 100 flags? And then that turned into 125 flags. So more than twice the number we've ever exhibited, and completely without intention, this became not only the largest exhibit of political campaign flags and textiles ever presented at a museum, but at the same time, I believe, is the largest exhibition of antique American flags, stars and stripes, that is, ever presented as well. I definitely need to give a shout out to Curator of Art and of the Center for American Decoys here at the museum, Zach Zettelberg, who was a tremendous help in setting up and pulling off this exhibit. Some highlights in Faces of a Nation include the earliest known American political textile that exists, produced in Britain or in Scotland for the American market and maybe also for the British market. This was made in opposition of the Stamp Act. It's one of a kind, and you can only see it here. Amazing. The only things sort of similar date to the Rev War period. So this is the only pre-Rev War American political textile. Also included is an extraordinary kerchief made to mourn the death of Alexander Hamilton. I have never seen another in first person, though I know of others to exist in museum collections. There's an extraordinary kerchief made for Andrew Jackson at a time before political campaigning was considered to be something that you should do, because before 1840 it was considered in America for campaigning for the White House or for public office to be unbecoming of a gentleman. Also included is an array of textiles made in 1840 for William Henry Harrison, who is generally considered to be the first man to run for the White House with a Whig Party, to actually actively campaign for the White House. And throughout this exhibition, you will find numerous flags and kerchiefs and banners that are simply one of a kind among known examples. There are complete walls of flags for James Polk and Henry Clay, and for Grover Cleveland versus Ben Harrison, who competed for the White House, and for William McKinley and Teddy Roosevelt and their various opponents. But best of all are a huge number of flags for Abraham Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant and their opponents in the 4 campaigns they comprise between 1860 and 1872. And the pillar of the Shankman collection and the anchor to the entire room is the largest and best known Lincoln campaign parade flag from either 1860 or 1864, the 2 times that he ran for office, right here at Peoria Riverfront Museum in Peoria, Illinois, at the center of the exhibit. So you're probably wondering, Jeff, Peoria, Illinois, why Peoria exactly? Well, Mark Shankman called me up and said, hey, we're doing an exhibition. And I said, okay, where? And he said, Peoria, Illinois. And I said, all right, because that's just kind of how we roll. I knew Mark would have a good reason, and that he probably couldn't wait to tell me. So he started to describe the man behind the mission, if you will, John Morris, and I remembered him almost instantly, as we had both met John, who is president and CEO at Peoria Riverfront Museum, when he was at Eureka College, where he served as the founding director of the Ronald W. Reagan Society. Eureka is where Reagan went as an undergrad. John Morris is a remarkable guy. In 2009, he picked up the phone, called Mikhail Gorbachev, and said, hey, will you come and speak at Eureka College since Reagan came to Russia in 1988 and spoke at Moscow State where you went to school? And Gorbachev said, sure, and he came. Unbelievable. John Morris is the kind of guy that gets crazy important stuff done of that nature. And that's exactly what's been happening at this museum since he's been here. In spite of its location, it's a prominent place, a big, beautiful, and extraordinary place. And it partners with the Smithsonian. It partners with Crystal Bridges, and it partners with the American Folk Art Museum, which has a big lend here now, as does Crystal Bridges. And it has an incredible decoy collection. In fact, it set up a center just for decoys, because this area in Illinois is where a lot of tremendous decoy making went on. So it's a lot of great carvings were made right here. It's a multidisciplinary institution, as you might imagine, but it has a tremendous folk art collection. It has the best weather vane I have ever seen in my life. Better than any major folk art museum or institution anywhere. Incredible. Has to be seen if you're a weather vane collector. Right now on loan is the biggest Schimmel carved eagle that I've ever seen. Schimmel worked about 10 miles from me in Pennsylvania, and is iconic in the folk art world. And the best one that I've ever seen in person is here in Peoria, Illinois. Before me, Ken Burns came and exhibited his quilt collection. Incredible. And he's coming back again in 2026 when he's going to serve as the museum's guest curator for the 250th anniversary celebration of America. Amazing. Who better to head that than Ken Burns, who's a wonderful friend and a great guy. A good friend of mine the other day accused me of maybe being a little bit on the critical side when it comes to antiques and design and etc. And, guilty as charged, Your Honor. I think that's probably true. One thing I can say about this category of my life for sure, I don't blow smoke when it comes to antiques and design and the ability to put on exhibits. And this place is just outstanding in all ways. I don't care where it's located. You need to come here to Peoria and see it for yourself, because it's a great, beautiful place. And the food here, oh my gosh, who would expect to come to Peoria, Illinois of all places and get tremendous food? But that's exactly what happened. I want to come back just because the restaurants are so good. So you need to ask John Morris for a recommendation. Built in 2012, primarily with money from Caterpillar, which was located right here, and the Caterpillar Museum is adjoining and is right next door. You know, Caterpillar doesn't do anything small. That sort of goes without saying. Mark Schenkman doesn't do anything small, that's for sure. John Morris, CEO and president of the museum, is definitely cut from the same cloth. And, well, I've been known to be a little bit of an overdoer, kind of obsessive compulsive, you might say. But together, this was just a good match. I had drawn this out before I got here, sort of. I just actually sketched it on the plane on the way to Illinois. But, until you get in front of a space like this that you haven't seen before, with this much material, it is just really difficult to do a whole lot constructive, at least for me. So I walked in and the playbook went in the trash can, so to speak, and my hat's off to the museum and their flexibility and their vision to just let me have at it and put these however I wished to do so. And for the next day and a half, we just knocked it out. My great thanks to all the help from the museum and my own staff as we were able to do things that I've never done before in a museum exhibition, because I was able to just choreograph the installation basically with a blank slate. And I can't tell you how rewarding it was to select the best material from one of my best clients and friends that I've never personally seen together in one place at one time, and be able to logically organize it and artistically organize it by candidate, by founding father, by date, and in such a way that made sense for a educational exhibition as well as a decorative one. Thank you, thank you, thank you to Mark and Rosalind Schenkman for buying all of these things, and for Peoria Riverfront Museum for allowing us to come in and set this up in our own way and be able to enjoy this quantity of the Shankman collection in this one terrific place.